you put out an event that people can never quite get their sharp picture of, and then you introduce conflicting information, and then you introduce erroneous information, then so you keep doing this until people just say, I don't give a crap anymore, and they accept it as true. So, I mean, that pattern does follow the kind of social engineering methodology that anyone can look up.
We must remain focused solely on truth and fact. It's very easy to assume.
A warning: if there are children in the room, the content here may be disturbing.
Nikolas Cruz on February 14th, on Valentine's Day, went to the Marjory, Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, armed with an assault rifle and with ammunition. Over the next several minutes, he murdered 17 students and faculty members and wounded over a dozen more.
And then you got the flashing lights. I mean, it looks straight up like out of a movie.
The just published video shows the moment shooter Nikolas Cruz entered a stairway in the school and, while loading his semi-automatic rifle, warns a student who happens to walk by.
Freshman Chris McKenna.
He started to take the bullets and load in the gun. I froze. He then said to me, "Get out of here. It's going to start getting messy."
Where was he loading his gun?
On the stairwell, the bottom stairwell. He took it out of like a gun case that kind of looked like a guitar case.
Why do you think he spared you?
I don't think he was fully reloaded yet. I don't think his bullets were in.
Boom, 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 in the hall, and the kids instantaneously dropped to the floor. Then they tried hiding behind file cabinets. They went behind my desk. And seconds after that, the gunman shot his AK-15 into the glass panel of my door and hit several of my students, and two were fatally wounded.
We have been practicing drills for months since we got back from winter break, and even before that. So when it first happened, we all thought it was a drill, and as soon as it got closer and closer, we all ran towards my teacher's desk for safety. As the shooting was going on, you can hear the glass shattering through all the halls and the bullet holes piercing the walls and everything, and it was just so horrible.
Still, she managed to call her father, who works for the sheriff's office. He went to the school and found Hannah.
When my dad picked me up, he picked me up about a mile that way down Pine Island Road, and he was coming from work. He turned on his lights and work truck because he works for BSO.
This is a bit of an exaggeration, but it seemed like every one of them knew this kid, this Nikolas Cruz.
Absolutely.
Did you know him?
Yes. Briefly. Obviously, we weren't friends, but we existed within the same JROTC program. He was friends with some of my closest friends, and that's when I heard two shots fired in the hallway. The first two shots, like, everyone in the room froze, right? Everyone was under the impression it was a drill. That's what we said to each other. And the third shot was fired, and that's when we knew that it wasn't a drill. So I looked up and I looked in the window and I saw him, like, firing through the window. And then at one point, he stopped firing altogether and just, like, peered in and looked in and then walked away.
Did you know who it was?
Not initially, no, because I was under the impression there was multiple of them because of how many shots were being fired. It wasn't until until I got to the hospital that I started making the connections, and then it clicked that it was Nikolas Cruz.
An Uber car dropped off the suspect at 2019 yesterday, 2:19 p.m. at Stoneman Douglas High School. The suspect entered the east stairwell, that's building 12, with a rifle inside a black, soft case. The suspect exited the stairwell, pulled the rifle out of the case. At 2:21 hours and 33 seconds, the suspect readied his rifle and began shooting into rooms 1215, 1216, 1214. He went back to 1216, back to 1215, and then to 1213.
The best way to do an investigation, the sheriff will tell you this, I'll tell you this, is that you don't go in with assumptions. He's not going to make assumptions, as you just said. I'm not going to make assumptions. We're going in there following the facts. The facts will always lead you to your conclusion.
A warning: if there are children in the room, the content here may be disturbing.
Told everybody to head towards our fire drill location, and when we got down the stairs, because my room is on the second floor, I heard what turned out to be gunshots. At first, it sounded like firecrackers. And once I heard that, I ran back upstairs. I had about 5 or 6 of my English seniors with me, and then I took in students from the classroom next door and locked the door, and we just, kind of hunkered down until we were released. I was in my room with them for a little over 2.5 hours.
The suspect then took the west stairwell to the second floor and shot one victim in room 1234 on the second floor.
Now the suspect proceeds to the second floor. There are no victims in this hallway. If we could pause here. As the suspect continues in an eastward direction down this hallway, he does fire into 2 classrooms on the second floor. However, no victims are struck by gunfire. He's then going to move on to room 1234, where he fires several more rounds that also travel through and out the exterior windows.
The suspect then took the east stairwell to the 3rd floor. He dropped his rifle and backpack, ran down the stairs. He exited building 12 and ran towards the tennis courts, and then took a southbound turn on foot.
As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nikolas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him...
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. So, and the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be 2 shooters involved, I believe.
That's the first I've heard of that.
You wouldn't accept these sorts of inconsistencies or bizarre coincidences or things that just don't make sense. Bullshit that was, a fraction as ridiculous. When you look closely, the details, they just collapse upon themselves.
A warning: if there are children in the room, the content here may be disturbing.
When everybody realized that and he started coming up the stairs, everybody started running back to their room. There was like a stampede of people just sprinting back to their rooms. We were all waiting at the door, and he comes over and he unlocks the door, and we all get in. And I see this figure come up the stairs with this pistol, and I guess that was him.
Off-duty Coral Springs Police Sergeant Jeff Heinrich happened to be at the school that day working on the ball fields. He ran towards the danger and found Kyle. A round from the AR-15 tore through his ankle, and he was losing a lot of blood.
The first door I went to was jammed. There was sadly another girl who passed away on the other side, and I could not get it open.
Somehow he managed to run down 3 flights of stairs on that badly wounded ankle and make his way outside. He gave Sergeant Heinrich a complete description of the shooter, what he was wearing, even the type of weapon he was using.
He's like, where do you know where the shooter is? Do you know what he looks like? I was like, yeah. His gray black sweater, hoodie on, and some jeans. He's like, do you know what weapon? I was like, AR-15, and I described everything to him, and he was like, all right, thank you, and they went off. So it was that was pretty cool though.
Kyle says he wants to be a paramedic, and they teach paramedics to stay calm.
I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks. The senior named Joaquin Oliver screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting. 19-year-old young man with trouble. I didn't know that at the time because he had a mask on, so I didn't know who it was. I just saw a guy with a gun shooting at my kids.
And then they taught us, they said that if there's a fire drill, they want all the kids to run out, so that would make an easier shot. And then you just hear a bunch of like pounding, but I thought it was someone hitting something, and I kind of look at my friend Nick, and he's like, do you hear that? And like everybody just starts pushing each other, running, and then we're kind of just like, is this what's happening? And then we realized like we thought this was a drill because they said they'll use blanks in a drill, but they actually didn't. It was real. All the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building, so everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up. So everybody, and then I thank God to this teacher who opened up her door and let all of us in. She got shot in the arm trying to open the door, and then the other teacher, he got shot in the head trying to cut the other students. And
how were you calming them down?
I think there was a bunch of people calming them down. There was mostly the girls crying because they're just sensitive to the whole thing, because they figured out it was real after this girl opened the article and saw all the helicopters, and we heard the guns outside of the policemen. I heard him get shot, and I was like, oh no, they're like out for cold blood. And basically, when we were all free, when the policemen bust down the window, the door, we finally got out, and like they started yelling at us to keep focused and pay attention ahead, the army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them. They're trying to.
So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one shooter?
There's 3 shootings. That's what I hear. Definitely. I know one teacher's dead. That's what there's 2 security guards who are dead. The teacher's dead, and then my other teacher, she got shot in the arm, but she's fine. She just started walking home too.
I was about 2 feet away from my door. All of a sudden I heard gunshots in the stairwell, which is about 20 feet away from my room. And then kids were screaming and then running back towards me and towards the end of the hallway. So I just went in this very strange autopilot mode where I pivoted on my feet. I unlocked my door, and then kids just started pouring in my room. I don't know how many kids were in there, but I was pulling them and getting them in and shouting at them to get in the room. And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked or grazed or whatever you call it.
So a bullet hit your arm?
Yes. As I'm closing my door, I'm shouting at my next door neighbor, Mr. Scott Beagle, to close his door. But he couldn't see the shooter. I had a good visual of him, which is why I yelled at him to shut his door now. I heard him shoot a barrage of bullets into Mr. Beagle's room. And then he came to my room and shot about 4 or 5 shots into my room, breaking the glass of my door. There's a rectangular piece of glass. And I heard him continuously shooting down the hallway. And I never really knew when he left because we just thought he was still there.
Well, let me give you some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask and had smoke grenades. He then went and activated the alarm system.
I smelled dust and I didn't know what it was, so I thought it was like the school trying to pretend like fake smoke. She said, I don't know if this is real or fake, because we had rumors going around the school that the police would do a fake code red with fake fake guns, not actual, but sounding real. And I thought at the beginning that this was it was all a drill. It was just a drill. Backpacks thrown everywhere. It was like a movie scene. There was gunpowder all over the floor. It was just so real, but it felt so fake. If I'm gonna be honest, it felt like 5 years, more than that. I was just so scared. I wanted to go home. I wanted the cops, because my grandfather is a former state trooper.
And then you got the flashing lights. I mean, it looks straight up like out of a movie.
It went along my skull and came out about 3 inches later.
So where did it go?
It came right in the back, right in the center of my head, and it came out about 3 inches later along my skull.
Psychologist Dr. Jeff Gardier called it Batman syndrome.
Here's someone who lives at night, lives in the shadows, shuns the daylight, feels his greatest strength in the evening, at night, and basically is not a person who exposes himself much to sunlight